Hello, my name is Paul Jeon. I serve as Assistant Professor of New Testament and Pastoral Theology at Reformed Theological Seminary in Washington, D.C., and I am also a pastor. My work is focused on the intersection of biblical exegesis, preaching, and pastoral practice, especially in contexts shaped by cultural diversity. I want to begin by introducing my paper. The title of my paper is Preaching Between Worlds: How Second Generation Korean American Identity Shapes the Interpretation and Proclamation of the Gospel. This project was born out of both my academic research and my lived experience as a second generation Korean American. I wanted to explore how ethnic identity, far from being a distraction from biblical fidelity, can actually serve as a lens that enriches our proclamation of Christ. Here I want to summarize my paper. The paper makes three central moves. First, I examined the bicultural formation of second generation Korean Americans. These preachers grow up shaped by two worlds: the collectivist heritage of their immigrant parents, with values like filial piety, shame, and communal belonging, and the individualistic culture of mainstream America, with its emphasis on freedom and self expression. This dual formation creates tension, but it also produces unique pastoral gifts, such as empathy, the ability to navigate complexity, and sensitivity to both communal and individual needs. Second, I show how this bicultural identity shapes biblical interpretation. For example, passages about exile and belonging, such as 1 Peter or the story of Ruth, resonate deeply. Christ's suffering in Isaiah 53 speaks powerfully to communities that have inherited hardship and shame. Themes of marginalization and silence also take on new depth for those who grew up negotiating invisibility or racial exclusion. In this way, second generation preachers bring fresh theological emphases that can serve the wider church. Third, I explore how this identity shapes the act of proclamation itself. Many of these preachers embody a humble, relational style rather than a confrontational one. Their indirectness is not weakness, it's a strategic way to preserve relationships while still calling for transformation. They often use storytelling and testimony as their primary homiletical tools, connecting the gospel to lived realities like immigration, sacrifice, and intergenerational tension. Their preaching often functions as cultural translation, helping to bridge divides not only between generations and immigrant churches, but also in multi-ethnic ministry contexts. Finally, the paper concludes with constructive proposals for homiletics pedagogy. I argue that seminary training must include space for ethnographic reflection so students can recognize how their identity shapes their preaching. Evaluation rubrics should be broadened beyond Western rhetorical ideals to recognize diverse forms of authority and communication. And theological preparation should engage voices from ethnic theologies alongside the traditional canon so that preaching reflects the global body of Christ. In closing, my paper argues that ethnicity is not a liability for preaching, but a gift. The second generation Korean American experience provides a vivid example of how the gospel takes root in particular cultural soils and then bears fruit for the wider church. My hope is that this study not only encourages Korean American preachers, but also helps the broader evangelical community imagine preaching as a more embodied, contextual, and faithful witness to Christ. Thank you for your time, and I look forward to further conversation at the conference.